Welcome to this explainer. You know, if you're over 50 and you've been dreaming about your next home, maybe you're looking for something a bit smaller, something closer to family, or just a place that better fits your current lifestyle, you might feel like there's this massive financial roadblock standing in your way. I'm talking about the legendary 20% down payment rule. It's a number that keeps so many older homeowners completely frozen in place, stopping them from even exploring a move long before they ever run the real numbers. So today, we're going to absolutely demystify this rule, look at what the data actually says, and show you exactly why your financial picture is probably a whole lot stronger than you think. Okay, let's just jump right in and ask the big $1 million question right up front. Is a 20% down payment actually a strict requirement, or is it just an outdated assumption? For years, people have treated this as a locked-in law of real estate. But as we're about to see, treating it as a hard requirement might just be the absolute biggest myth holding you back from your next chapter. Section 1. The 20% myth, and exactly where this decades-old rule came from. Now, listen, it's completely understandable if you feel bound to this number. For years, hitting that 20% mark was the absolute gold standard to avoid private mortgage insurance, or PMI, on a conventional loan. Older financial advice leaned heavily on this specific number as the ultimate sign of responsibility. You likely grew up hearing this rule repeated by your parents, by your banks, and in basically every financial book out there. But here's the thing about advice that gets repeated over and over. It starts to feel like a legal mandate instead of just one single option. That advice wasn't exactly wrong, but it was incomplete. And frankly, it's kind of outlived the original reasoning behind it. It certainly doesn't fit every buyer's actual situation today. Moving right along to Section 2, what real numbers show when we look at 2025 down payment statistics. Well, the 2025 data from the National Association of Realtors tells a pretty surprising story here. Notice the stark differences across the different buyer types. The median for all buyers was just 19%, not 20%. First-time buyers came in way lower, at a median of just 10%. And yes, repeat buyers did land at a median of 23%. But notice that even this higher figure is just an average result of varied financial situations, not a strict baseline rule that everyone absolutely had to meet just to get in the door. Section 3. Unlocking your home equity. The good news is, you aren't starting from scratch. If you're over 50 and you already own a home, your financial picture looks completely different from, say, a 20-something trying to buy their first condo. You aren't starting from zero. In fact, a staggering 54% of repeat buyers fund their next purchase using proceeds from selling their previous home. Think about that for a second. They aren't scraping together cash into a savings account for years on end to hit some magical 20% mark. Nope. Their down payment is literally already sitting in the walls of their current property, just waiting to be unlocked. Actually, age plays a really huge role here. Bankrate data shows that buyers between 60 and 69 put down a median of 28%, and buyers 70 and older put down even more. But, and this is a big but, they aren't doing this by pulling from a checking account they built from scratch. They're rolling forward decades of home equity they've already built up. It completely transforms the entire down payment equation. Your down payment is essentially a relocation of assets you already own, not some massive new mountain you have to climb. Let's move to Section 4, exploring loan options and lower down payment programs. Here is the truly empowering news. You don't even need decades of equity to buy your next home. According to LendingTree data, modern conventional loans can require as little as 3% down for a primary residence, and FHA loans require just 3.5% if you have a qualifying credit score. These programs exist because, again, 20% was never a universal rule. It's always just been one option among many. Now, yes, a lower down payment usually means paying temporary mortgage insurance until you build enough equity. But you know what? That cost is often incredibly manageable when you compare it to the heavy burden of delaying your life plans for years. Just as a quick benchmark for you, in Illinois, the median down payment sits right around $40,000. Let's ground this in some practical math, shall we? Picture a homeowner in the south suburbs selling their house for $400,000, and let's say they still have $250,000 left on their mortgage. After typical selling costs, that leaves them with roughly $130,000 to $140,000 in net proceeds. Now let's say they want to turn around and purchase their next home for $350,000. With that much equity unlocked, they have incredible flexibility for their next steps. The absolute crucial takeaway here is the staggering $57,000 gap between these two approaches. If they clung to that 20% myth, they'd need $70,000 down on that $350,000 home, which, sure, they could do, leaving a nice cushion for updates or savings. But look at the reality of a 3.5% FHA loan. It requires just $12,250 down. The difference is literally incredible. It proves exactly why you should never, ever treat the 20% figure as a fixed requirement. The real question is simply what amount makes the most sense for your monthly budget and your long-term goals.
Section 5. Retiring-related myths. Your situation is probably a lot more flexible than you think.
You see, the 20% rule rarely travels alone. There are usually a couple of other financial assumptions that tend to ride along with it, keeping people totally frozen in place. The first related myth is the belief that you absolutely must sell your current home before you can even apply for a new mortgage. That is simply not true. You don't have to follow a rigid sequence of events here. In a lot of cases, a bridge loan or a home equity line of credit, a HELOC, lets you access your current equity before you even close on a sale. That approach gives you the funds you need to confidently make an offer on your next home, completely removing the stress of perfectly timing the two sales.
A second persistent myth is this idea that your down payment has to come entirely from pure cash savings sitting in the bank. Gently remind yourself that your financial picture is so much broader than that. In reality, equity from a home sale absolutely counts as legitimate down payment funds. And in many loan programs, so do gifts from family members. You really aren't bound by those old cash-only rules anymore.
Section 6, timing your next move and coordinating that big transition. So now that we know the math actually works, we have to acknowledge that timing is absolutely critical. Coordinating two closings takes strategy, for sure, and you have multiple paths forward. You might choose to sell your current home first and rent short-term while you search for the perfect next place. Or maybe you prefer the bridge loan route, so you can buy your new home first and only have to move once. Neither approach is automatically better than the other. What matters most is that your comfort level, the local market, and your desired timeline guide the right choice for you. And honestly, the best way to figure that out is to work with a lender early in the process to understand your true, full financial picture, ideally before you fall in love with a specific home. I really want to highlight this piece of concluding wisdom from a seniors real estate specialist, or SRES. These folks are specifically trained to understand how home equity, timing, and financing all intersect for homeowners over 50. As the quote says, "What matters is running your specific numbers with a lender and a realtor. A cookie-cutter answer rarely serves anyone well. It's your unique equity, your timing, and your chosen loan programs that matter, not some decades-old assumption." Which leaves us with this final thought for today. The 20% rule was never a locked requirement, and the data clearly proves it. This myth has kept way too many people assuming a move is financially impossible, when in reality, their actual numbers paint a beautiful picture of opportunity. So, now that you're free from the 20% myth, and you actually know your real options, what does your next move look like? Where do you want to be? I really encourage you to envision that future today. And remember, if you want to explore this further, definitely check out available free resource libraries online. They often have dedicated pages for homeowners 50+, featuring really practical guides on downsizing, aging in place, and senior living options. Your next chapter is out there waiting for you, and it is far more within reach than you probably ever imagined.